Hello mga kababayan, kumusta po kayo? Good morning everyone, and this is Johnny the Bagger para sa ating YouTube channel JDB Comments Pro Filipino. Alright, meron lang akong gustong bigyan ng reaction itong ano ba to? Manny Pacquiao nakabili ng vlogger from India. Panoorin niyo po.
In 2012, it was the Scarborough Shoal. The Philippines lost it. Today, it is under the de facto control of China. In 2012, Philippines made the mistake of trusting Barack Obama. What it got was a plate full of betrayal. Rodrigo Duterte has been skeptical about the United States ever since. He has been, contrary to all sane thought, been inkling for better relations with China, even when all China wants is to eat the Filipino country up bit by bit, which is why it is today eyeing the Whitsun Reef. This will continue unless a powerful, nationalist Filipino leader rises and says, enough is enough. We at TFI will tell you what qualities that leader must have.
Alright, ano sabi niya? They will be able to tell us, the Filipino people, who will be or who would be, or let's say, who is fit, okay, to replace President Duterte. Tingnan natin yung mga susunod na sasabihin ng Indianong vlogger na nabili ba to ni Manny Pacquiao.
But first, let's talk about Rodrigo Duterte, who is hell-bent on destroying the Philippines.
Ano daw? He said that President Duterte or President Rodrigo Duterte is hell-bent in destroying the Philippines. Ibig sabihin ng hell-bent, would do anything, okay, to achieve something. So, ibig sabihin, nakamote na to, si President Duterte daw ay desidido na sirain ang Pilipinas. Nako, mukhang may tama ang isang ito.
Hi and welcome. This is TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I am your host, Sanbir Hotra, and in this video, I will talk about Rodrigo Duterte and who can replace him as the Philippines' much-needed decisive leader. Let's begin.
Right, sige, tingnan natin. Let's see. If he will be able or they will be able to tell us who would be the best one or the fit one to replace President Duterte. All right?
The Philippines needs a decisive leadership. The Philippines needs a strong government that places the interests of the country at the core of all its actions. President Rodrigo Duterte has proven to be an unmitigated disaster for the Philippines, who has steered the country increasingly towards the direction of China, thus compromising heavily on Manila's national security. Today, China is locked in a tense maritime standoff with the Philippines. Yet, Rodrigo Duterte cannot stop singing the praises of China like a canary. He is, in fact, vouching for stronger ties with China.
Well, hindi naman ganyang klaseng description dapat na katulad ng parang sinasamba na ni President Duterte ang China. Katulad sinasabi niya na sa singing the praises of China like the canary. Alam niyo totoo, marapat lang naman na pasalamatan ng isang presidente ang isang gobyerno na tumulong sa atin. Kasi una namang hiningian ng tulong ng presidente, 'di ba? Ang Amerika. Ang problema, ang Amerika masyadong maraming requisitos, masyadong maraming kondisyones na to the point na ang trato sa Pilipinas sa ating gobyerno ay isang alipin. Diba? At yun ay hindi nagugustuhan ni President Duterte. Kaya ang ginawa niya ngayon, lumipat siya ng mahihingian ng tulong. At totoo naman kailangan ng Pilipinas ng tulong. Diba? Yan ay, ulitin ko lang, okay lang naman okay lang naman magpasalamat, diba, sa taong nakatulong sa iyo. Wala naman hong masama doon. Dito talaga nagre-reflect, pansinin niyo mga kababayan, ng pagkakaiba ng kultura ng Pilipinas at ng mga Indiano. And besides, ang napapansin ko rito, wala siyang naiintindihan pagdating po sa international relationship ng Pilipinas. And this is just an FYI sa mga di pa nakakaalam. During the time of Marcos, Ferdinand Marcos, tsaka nitong si President Deng Xiaoping ng China, nagkaroon na ho sila ng agreement noon. Ano man ang problema nila sa isa't isa in relation to the West Philippine Sea, dyan sa South China Sea, sa dispute, ay pag-uusapan po. Alam niyo ho, base ho dito sa kasunduan ng panahon ni Ferdinand Marcos at dito sa China ni Deng Xiaoping, ay pag-uusapan po whatever disputes they have or disagreements in relation to their claims dyan sa West Philippine Sea. Okay? And that is also one of the reasons why President Duterte is doing this? Bakit ganun siya? Hindi ho yung gaya ng gusto mangyari ng ibang mga Filipino at ibang mga praning na gusto ko'y makipag-away na lang na parang batang inagawa ng candy. And please take note of this. When President Duterte came into power in 2016, well, China already established buildings, airports, okay, and they already made those territories, 7 territories plus 1. Right. Now, isa pa. Totoo naman eh. The president is really realistic. It doesn't matter at all whether he mentioned publicly that the Philippine military has no match with China, because that can be researched. Okay? It's actually a fact. Now, in facing bullies, the best thing that you can do is to be friend with them. Because kahit papaano po, ang bullies ay meron din namang mga magagandang makukuha ka sa kanila. Diba? You see? Anong ginawa ng Pangulo? Binalikan lang niya kung ano yung nauna ng agreement ng panahon ni Ferdinand Marcos at saka nitong China. Kung ayaw niyo yung ganyang klaseng agreement, bakit hindi ninyo prinotesta o bakit hindi binago nitong mga nakaraang administrasyon? Diba? And even Pinoy. When he realized that he made a mistake by bringing the matter into international court, anong ginawa niya? Ang anong stance ni Pangulong Pinoy nung time niya is ayaw rin niya ng digmaan, ayaw rin niya ng gulo. But this Indian boy, obviously, grabe, walang alam, okay? He knows nothing in regard to the Philippine history. At ano pang sabi niya?
Since according to him, the Philippines is no match for Beijing and its armed forces. Ideally, this should provide sufficient ground for Duterte to be removed from office. But it's
dapat daw maging sapat ng dahilan para mapalitan si President Duterte. You know what, man? Kung talagang dapat nang mapalitan ng presidente, dapat noon pa. Dahil hindi naman siya nagsimula ng kanyang-ganyang stance sa West Philippine Sea ngayon lang. In 2016 pa niya, kanya na yung kanyang stance, di ba? Pero bakit mataas pa rin ang approval ng mga tao sa aming presidente? It's simply because we approve what he's doing because we believe that that is for the country, that's for the good of the country and the
Filipinos will have to wait for another year before seeing the besmirched president exit his office. In his final State of the Nation speech on Monday, Duterte suggested that he is sticking to his conciliatory stance towards China.
So far, yun lang magagawa namin ngayon. Kung hindi ang makipagkasundo, makipagkaibigan, di ba? Hindi kaya ng Pilipinas na makipagyera. We cannot afford war or makipagbangayan sa China. Wala kaming mapapala at mapapahamak pa ang bansa. Katulad na lang na nangyari nito. Ang problema na nakaraan ng 2012 ay nasa party lamang po ng Zambales area. Right? Dun po sa Baho de Masinloc. Bahala ka mag-research, loko. That was April until June 2012. Now, what happened was, with that dispute, after the Philippines back out, then the country decided to bring the matter into international court. Now, ang China, nakikiusap sila na huwag daw dadalhin yan sa international court pag-usapan. Pero problema nung panahon ni Pinoy, he decided to file it and then have the issue internationalized. Then what happened was, then China retaliate and then occupy the 7 territories and develop them into military facilities plus the one that they already captured or had taken over from Fidel Valdez Ramos in 1994. So we cannot afford to lose more territories.
The outgoing president diligently asked, "Do you want war against China?" Well, I'll tell you, even on the coast beach of Palawan, before you take off, the missile of China would be there in about 5 or 10 minutes. Duterte added, "We are not a competent and able enemy of the other side. So, what I did was, I was just being nice to them." He also sang the virtues of Chinese dictator Xi Jinping and said, "The first country I called for help was China when the pandemic hit the Philippines. I told President Xi Jinping, we have no vaccination program here because we do not have the vaccines. We have not been able to invent one. We might have a hard time." Xi said, "It is okay. We will send you." He sent us, donated about 1.5 million vaccines. President Rodrigo Duterte almost wants to convince his citizens that they are living at the mercy of China and that they should be thankful to the CCP. However, the time for such blatant prostration before the Chinese is long over. Today, ASEAN and countries across the Indo-Pacific are taking the mantle of anti-CCP activism in their hands. In such times, the Philippines too deserves to be a part of the larger global realignment.
Well, you should realize that President Duterte already realigned ASEAN and also rebalanced the power in Asia. Right? That is why, that is why, up to this moment, China has not taken any territories from the Philippines. Unlike what happened in the past administration. Man, you should do research first, okay?
And for that, it needs a strong leader in Manila to take matters in his or her own hands.
Nako mga kababayan, dito kayo masusurpresa. Sinong bet ng Indianong ito?
Now, this new leader who can take the Philippines to greater heights must be everything that Rodrigo Duterte is not. The new leader who can save the Philippines must be a China hawk and willing to fight the CCP. The leader must be a nationalist. The leader must grow close ties with the United States, but not be a lapdog of Washington, D.C. Finally, a new Philippine leader needs to come up who can take the country's ties with Russia to the next level. The Philippines needs a leader who is openly anti-China. The Red Row country is trying to gobble up Filipino territories and maritime features, and in such circumstances, having a leader who is conciliatory towards Beijing is a no-brainer.
Ano daw? No-brainer? Kapag kayong conciliatory with China, it's a no-brainer? Wow, nako, baka gusto mong magulpi ka ng mga Pilipino. Para mo na rin sinabi, nabobo si President Duterte. Right? You know what? By saying that the next leader or being conciliatory with China is a no-brainer, man. You don't know what you're talking about. Come to the Philippines and say it in public. You'll see what you'll get.
Over the 5 years since 2016, when Duterte was inaugurated, direct investment from China totaled $567 million, increasing 12-fold from the level in a 6-year period from 2010. Now, the Philippines needs a president who can reverse this damaging trend and who can cut down on the country's suicidal dependence on China. Until and unless the next leader of the Philippines is not a staunch nationalist, there is no way Manila will be able to fight off the Chinese threat. The Philippines' welfare, security, and development must take center stage for any leader who wishes to save the ASEAN country from inevitable doom which will be caused by continuing Chinese belligerence against Beijing. Another important feature of a strong Filipino leader must be their ability to understand the importance of ties with the United States in the larger fight against China. The Philippines must continue with and even strengthen the Visiting Forces Agreement. Additionally, any leader who wishes to save the Philippines must make it a point to not become a lapdog of the United States, since trusting Washington, D.C., especially when it is under the control of Democrats, can be a tricky gamble, one whose consequences Manila has already suffered. Finally, Russia must be allowed to play a greater role in the Philippines. With an increasingly belligerent China and a rather headless Biden administration in Washington, any leader committed to the Filipino cause must be shrewd enough to understand the importance of ties with Moscow, especially since Russia is a major arms exporter to Southeast Asian countries. One such leader can be Manny Pacquiao, the ambitious boxer turned politician. Manny Pacquiao, a Filipino senator and boxing champion, was voted out as the country's ruling party's head on Saturday, weeks after publicly criticizing President Rodrigo Duterte's stance on China and his anti-corruption record. He is considered as a possible successor to Duterte in the next year's presidential election. However, any leader who can fulfill the 4-point criteria laid by us can become a person who leads the Philippines towards glory. This leader will not be afraid of taking on China, and that is exactly what Manila needs right now if it wishes to survive an inevitable onslaught by the Chinese.
Right. Okay, ganito lang ho yan, mga kababayan. Itong sinasabi ni Indian Boy ay nakadepende ho actually or nakabase doon sa kanilang kasalukuyang sitwasyon doon sa India. At ang India ho ay mayroon dispute, territorial dispute with China. Now, ang dating ho nito, simple lang, ay parang naghahanap siya ng ano, ganito. Dapat ang Pilipinas ay naka-align daw o katulad ng ibang mga ASEAN nation na nilagay na nila sa kamay nila yung international ano tawag dito, decision na labanan yung mga activities daw ng CCP. Okay, pero FYI mga kababayan, or just a reminder, bago pa sila kumilos ng ganyan, President Duterte in 2016 and continuing already reshifted and rebalance the situation and the power in West Philippine Sea at saka dyan na rin syempre sa Southeast Asia and also maging dito po sa East Asia. Alright? Kaya nga ang Russia ay madali na hong nakakagalaw rito sa atin. Walang magawa ang China, then ang Amerika wala rin hong nagawa, 'di ba? Hindi na umuubra yung kanilang pangbalanse na para not really pang balance bagkus pang block sa Pilipinas and then sa ibang regional powers na makagalaw dito, kundi ang mararamdaman talaga rito sa Southeast Asia, lalong-lalo na sa pamamagitan ng Pilipinas, that this is a colonial territory of United States of America, but not anymore when Duterte came into power in 2016. Okay, now ang tinutumbok niya ho kasi rito, dapat ho nakikipagkampihan tayo. Kasi ganito lang, ang India ho kasi kailangan nila ng kakampi laban ho sa China. To put more pressure on China, na alam niyo naman na meron silang territorial dispute with China. Ano bang lugar yun? Araunakal ba yun? Diyan sa may, basta, hindi ko mabigkas yung Indian name ng territory na pinag-aawayan nila. Alright? Pero ito ho nakakapansin dito. Ang kanyang manok po, ang kanyang choice, na binasi niya lamang kung sino yung pumalag daw sa administration ni President Duterte, itong si Manny Pacquiao, na pagkatapos daw tuligsain ni Manny Pacquiao yung administration na triple yung corruption cases dito or situation dito sa Pilipinas during the term of President Duterte, tinanggal na raw sa pwesto. Di ba? Sa kanyang political party na PDP Laban. Nako, mukhang ang naging basihan lang po talaga nito 3 piraso lang ng mga facts, and then from there nag-conclude na itong kolokoy na to, 'di ba? Ang maganda naman, I totally agree doon sa mga binanggit niya na dapat daw ay katangian ng mga yung susunod na leader, 'di ba? Ang hindi ko lang doon na siguro meron akong madi-disagree doon, na totally pala agreeable ako doon. Kundi yung yung dapat daw ay handa at kayang labanan ng China. In what sense natin lalabanan ng China? Militarily, we cannot do that. 'Di ba? By principle, we can do that, pero mas mainam kung nandun tayo sa kapayapaan. 'Di ba? One of the great president that the Philippines had chose peace, 'di ba? Rather than war. Kung tutuusin, kayang makipaggera ni Ferdinand Marcos dun sa China kasi malakas tayo noon. Plus, kayang-kaya natin din dahil nandun ang Amerika sa atin, kakampi natin. At ang China at the time, hindi pa naman ho sila ganoong kalakas. Diba? Pero hindi ho pinili ni Ferdinand Marcos yung ganon. And now, the current President Rodrigo Duterte, ang kanyang desisyon ho ay ganon din. Diba? Katunayan, madaling na-resolve yung napakahirap i-resolve na issue doon na nagugat pa noong 2012 doon sa Scarborough Shoal. Na close to impossible na nga na mabawi pa natin yung 7 territory. Pero anong nagawa ng presidente natin? Nagawa niya ng solusyon ng problema sa bitukan ng mga mangingisda na magmula ng 2012 until 2016 hindi ho nakakapangisda doon. So maliwanag lang ho, isang malaking katarantaduhan kung sino man na nagbayad din sa vlogger na to para i-feature nila ang Pilipinas, para sabihin kung sino yung tumutugma para maging susunod na leader na makapagliligtas sa Pilipinas. Ang title nito, kung di nagkakamali, is President Rodrigo Duterte can't save the Philippines anymore. Diba? Kaya naman pala. Senator Manny Pacquiao, may kinalaman ka ba dito sa Indiano na to? Kasi nagtataka lang ako, hindi naman siguro basta-basta manghihimasok itong Indiano na to sa aspetong politikal ng Pilipinas. Well, I'm just only asking. Alright, sir. Good luck sa laban nyo. Napalitan pala kalaban mo. What a technique din kung tutuusin. Imagine, sinet up pa yung Errol Spence, Business Manny Pacquiao. Tapos, pag malapit na yung laban, magpapalit pala ng kalaban. Dahil ba malakas si Errol Spence, alam naman natin, alam nyo naman pala na meron namang matagal naman pala dyan na meron ng tama sa mata yung mama. Bakit hindi naman agad yan? Diba? Bakit clinose pa yung laban? Ay, ewan.